I see. And then we'll toss it to the new advantage. All right. Every judge is good? Excellent. Contention was inherited. We would say tipping point space debris is increasing exponentially to chain reaction to destroy cells discovered using 215 space 3 is going to this and China is 2000 whatever the way it's likely to happen. Agree and with space move the hospital moving fast approaching a tipping point in each launch will linearly coast debris. This makes space unusable. Limits attack every time rocket soldiers for the aerospace. Space will become too stressful for launch to take place. Also, it's even small debris will short circuit cells handling 10 debris starts out by time debris like charges may coast effectively to short circuit. Even with chilling because the space flight debris is visual pollution that you can obscure ground based astronaut observation. Also 30 new NASA problems were just funding including debris air guns V8 and 11 asteroid put through the hand to compress space laser called sample space 3. Nothing to change potentially the orbit, so the salads cameras behind. The ID condition 2 is Russia's space debris, with action nuclear with Russia, Lewis, and 4. A piece of space from the satellite, the cusp from accident war. Well, Russian planet space prime morning tactic, space where service is stable. A Russian would sell like Russian military used in action space in the first phase of a use attack in the star state of Russia's warring theories recent escalation false alarm at the moments of the consequence of the result of panic escalation. Also, the mere perception will trigger conflict escalation coupled to 5. It is small term satisfied to the heart's movement missile attacking the two attack to windows such occurred with side tensions with could escalate to larger conflict. A extinction half of the past for 9 with 1 to territory with 5 minutes 100 would die and 30 minutes would survive and the human that remained devolved disease the minutes between Cohen would come. Safety tension 3 is hegemony. Space debris risk collapse in military immediately leads global nuclear action and global nuclear terrorism. Both guarantee nuclear escalation. Breaking 11 U.S. compensation next to space debris is threat to national security. U.S. military satellites for communication, intel navigation, command and control of UAV, and the commission navigation to the operation for warming mountain missiles to the guard state with missile attack. Space capabilities are vital to also not refer to penal threats and fighting hostage space using WD. Also, a diverse causal every branch of military would collapse and satellites jumps on today military reliant satellites. It is possible to imagine the U.S. function without reliant satellites to verify trade compliance, monitor threat, and Friday advanced warning missile attacks episodes of license space technology. Crucial advantages also debris will collapse terrestrial sea power. That means bioterror, naval AMS, and one state's military warfare operations and basic war operations advanced economic terms required by the biological forecast of amateur domestic and global skills and extinction out to 2 out to 1 because we're out at the time of the solar accidentalities and hegemony and ensures coalition building terrorist and fancy alternatives global war chain 11. No one sees building chances for opportunity here have to ban with US hegemony creating status quo that has technically nuclear power conflicts in history has power decline of reaches to result in military competition as a result of lucrativity from Mars trade appear promoting cooperation global hegemony nuclear powers and Mars the littleness of the planet protection devolves and bears also statistics prove that violence has decreased due to hegemony bar 9/11 no one to war into war to decline war when the wave the dinosaur once American chief super power set so we're just completely there free was there let's go the president of American must coincide with the greatest reduction in global violence ever seen and hegemony also de-escalates and solves all global nuclear conflict taken 12. Best culture impact to cover war difference global position independently in African wars in China attacking Taiwan nationalism and other should be having nation wars between Indian China and Indian over Georgia the Arctic and Turkey and Syria so Palestine we put new women's people pieces of less rival Denver could no is the war guaranteed use was in China Russia and Pakistan what's terms of reuse is not distributed power that makes us settle with the change that war with battle also hegemony still confident in transnational problems each one causes extinction back in 12 the climate and country and Americans rejected the problems of the climate policy was made closing with opportunity ability to extra effect and friend war and hegemonic struggles and the wars and power planning such fears the conflict of violent reaction material links and cold market observation U.S. less transnational problems such as warming, water scarcity, and disease to the faster with U.S. leaders to radical action. Thus, the United States should deploy ground-based lasers to decrease space debris. Contended for is solvency. A single laser could solve all debris in 3 years. It comes in 10. The real time comes solution. Grab a change orbits 1 center and 10 seconds. The south just to debris to re-enter the atmosphere. A single laser could all drawn for 3 years. And the technology exists now. Fits it all in love. And laser all the components access as reason volumes and glows and never power. However, a better understanding coupled with advanced technology the same and outdated laser whatever is practical and economic also targeting small debris space and so on 10. These most names for space debris are from 1 to 10 the large and most serious damage to the fragmented for space from 3 large 10 meters are largely retracted but also we contract debris now we just cannot dispose of it and see and all other results in 10 meters to grab myself with radar sensors capable of detecting crystalline small size also be planned solved without triggering the link to the space model set Ackerman 11. This laser proposal was much less powerful laser on the order of 5 was 10 less powerful. The laser was so enough to do enough to put burn up with 10 pace per drop per day, which is enough to get in space and turn the skies became clear. And safe also regardless, it cannot be a weapon. Coney 11, you other could see the potentially using like laser 5 kilowatts. The concern other could be illuminated being would not be capable of scale. Also, the U.S. government is key Smith them in 10 U.S. the Senate for having the Constitution for having the U.S. national generals J spot gender accuracy sets available only to military personnel. The Russian SS Jack confirmed the turn to go to track cells and the Western Hemisphere on the whole and also the plan is key. So what A is trees. Answer 10. The OST saved the nation for changes to space operating combined with changes in lab communication before any reason move separate open which we need to obtain using commercial company operators working with accurate on commons as the OST makes country responsible for non-government entities also tragedy of the commons and so intended fact that space administration with significant large community will space be the nation moves safe to tragedy commons environments in response to climate change and thus and connectified is the new advantage you can call it the Middle East advantage. One way to makes the use of Earth impossible for everyone the planet and so intending high spatial density space theory and critical opportunity with people with salads fries or wanted to welcome the crucial capital use of Earth space and scientific uncontrolled great growth over the next interview on the looking friendship problems. Also, all Middle Eastern satellites get knocked out. U.S. Congress in 90. Satellites are done by space like organizations or areas of Middle Eastern countries. Also, satellites increase transparency with solve. This calculation was infused with common standard in one satellite identifying response to choose movements or sets of missiles, characteristics, arms, and become rival, making it harder for states to hide their activities. Also, Israeli satellites serve as a deterrent to Iran and Syria war. Galaxy 7. Satellites provide between intelligence and following peace in the Middle East. Satellites help stuff like the fire nuclear weapons behind the grind. Do food weapons between nuclear weapons. Iran watch over the Iran and Syria. Israel satellites carrying new high-resolution cameras. Also, Israel-Syria war will result in nuclear annihilation. Joshi 2K. Major massive Syrian surprise attacks. Such possesses the kind of arsenal Syria could retain the goal in the heights. As near we right for nuclear Armageddon. The Israel is lowered. Israel may force lots of women across Syria from the great hearts of long-term supplies. Security hard to alert the thoughts of nuclear breaking out by accident will be great. And to heavily Iran Israel war escalates globally and causing the extinction. Hershey 5 Israel. Several cuts of violent attack. Military conservative right. U.S. would have the nuclear weapons. The U.S. and the Middle East was exploded. Pakistan could be overtaking nuclear weapons. Lead to Russia's involvement with no taboo. They will use the world is destroyed. Also, independently South Turkey to monitor and respond to Syrian chemical weapons attack. Oswald 12 711 Martin's best research launch companies stockpile Assad given her the materials to extremity with important Syrian to maintain visibility and centers chemical weapons. U.S. repair contingency plans for deployment of serious arsenals here and the use of chemical violence escalating to follow in civil war. Also, the impact of global war strategic analysis and 2K chemical weapons are designed to offset this world's conventions with arming new companies such as there will be right for global nuclear armament and also independently South to improve Israel and Israeli operational capabilities. IHSA and 10. Satellite Israel's military space to control of the Saturn will grant Israel defense forces not present operational capabilities due to the satellite. We now have better coverage, and that is key to prevent Middle East war. One jailer and 3 and 8 Israel must fund defense of militarily and qualitative military to relying on advanced weapons to deter viruses to separate themselves. That's right. One with Israel containing Iran's capacity. Also, Middle East conflict causes global war stomach and 2 should war breaking the Middle East and new classification will be strong probability unilateral possessions of new weapons. Israel lowers the threats of the actors from the Alchemy wars between Middle East and Syria world conflagration and family satellite capabilities are crucial to preventing water wars are key to effective resource management. And 2K. Trusting international waterways and management and data collected separately and to track alternative data is politically neutral because direct management sales are often more reliable disputes and conflicts worsen and trust will fade away. Also, waterways are inevitable and coming out. The river basins are key for Panther and 2K. The 65 facing water space water service city to the challenge the world is situated in international nations. The academic disputes are bound to already warrant armed conflict, warning disasters, and the comes environment destruction, coordinated information and transmission and satellites are also stop instability and conflict over the Nile about and 9 and 12. The protection both from the Nile waters taking countries and instability in market style. The NASA transparency information solve problem satellite imaging the kind of now project typical recognize the legal framework Nile water wars guarantee global nuclear war. So do every other water conflict with a liner and 90 remain destroyed ourselves. The change bomb running leads North Africa and the emerging of the Middle East and the Euphrates touch over dwelling water revives population increasing a flash one common chip one trillion national touch of only 60,000 nuclear warheads and that makes a regional war in Egyptian instability and PBU 91 their refusal to war of the Nile Egypt's dirty region river water to aggregate country the only manner that can take Egypt to war and water in Egyptian instability alone guarantees nuclear war. St. Louis Post dispatch in 92 Egypt is the largest Arab nation in the Middle East with the glass of which government to call the Middle East to trouble brutal nuclear war could be the outcome of the Middle East with throwing great help you have be devastating for stability. Anything else?
Okay, cool. Why would Russia have an incentive to escalate a Middle Eastern war between Israel and Iran?
Why would they have an incentive?
Yes.
I believe you're talking about the Hershams indicates that they would accidentally get drawn in because of alliances.
Accidentally get drawn in, so what, do they step on Israel's toes or something?
No.
Like, how do you accidentally get drawn into a nuclear war?
It's not that they accidentally get drawn into the nuclear war, it's that they're drawn
You just said
to the nuclear war. No, right, so they would get drawn into the conflict because alliance commitments, probably oil interests. The Hershams isn't very specific.
Yeah, I understand there's oil interests, but it
Sure.
seems to me like the United States also has oil interests in there, and
course.
therefore, why would they want to potentially start an accidental nuclear war with the United States,
I think
which
they
is
would
the
feel
largest
that,
nuclear
well, the
superpower?
Hershams seems to indicate that given this scenario where a Syrian chemical attack were to happen and Iran and Israel start going at each other, they would feel they need to protect their alliances and their interests, and they would protect their oil.
Protect their alliances. And
This is all outlined in the
I'm wondering why would Russia want to use a nuclear weapon? And if it has a possibility of escalating into a conflict with the United States, which your Steinbeck evidence talks
about. The evidence
about.
does not say that Russia would use a nuclear weapon. It indicates that the regional conflict that erupts would erupt into a miscalculation.
Would result in Russia making miscalculation, therefore
would result in
utilizing a nuclear
Iran and
weapon.
Israel.
I have a question. I have another question.
Israel also has a
I have another question.
Okay.
So when does this cascade effect that allows for destruction of all
we read a
satellites
piece
happen?
that from, I believe, a couple weeks ago that indicates that we are at a tipping point of debris now. Now let me give you an analogy that will just clear some things up. If you imagine dominoes going into space, the way that dominoes works is that they are all fine if you have 100,000 dominoes as long as they are set up correctly, right? However, the collisional cascading and the tipping point of debris is that we are hitting a critical, saturated mass of those dominoes in space, which means that as we
I understand that there's a critical saturated mass.
Going to happen.
However, there is not a debris collision right now. And maybe it's because we're lucky, because, there's a critical tipping point that is occurring right now, and we are very lucky. What if we happen to be lucky for the next 1,000 years in terms of our, space debris?
We would disagree. Obviously, the tipping point argument is a reason why cascading...
Well, your evidence seems to make the assumption that it could occur at any time. If it can occur at any time, it seems to me like it could also occur 250 years later, especially especially since you have not identified a definite time when this impact would occur.
We have read evidence that indicates that the saturation point is now. That means that all those dominoes are in space.
Okay, so why hasn't it occurred, like 5 seconds ago, or even yesterday? Because the saturation point occurred back in 2010.
Marcel, that is exactly our point, is that all of these things could occur very, very quickly. However, the AF, with one single laser physics solve on
I guess I've proven my point that it could happen anytime. All right, so
yes,
my question to you is the Lewis evidence.
Sure.
Why would Russia utilize a nuclear weapons against the United States if they don't know if the United States destroyed their early warning satellites?
Two pieces of fantastic evidence. The Kulpa evidence indicates because, quote, it's impossible to determine if a satellite failure is due to the harsh space environment and debris or a malicious attack they will rationally.
Okay, so there's two ways that these Russian defense planners can kind of determine whether or not something hit their satellites. It could have potentially been an ASAT or a strike by the United States, or it could have just been an accident. Why wouldn't they just defer to an accident, or why would they have an incentive to defer to the potential of being a strike?
Evidence indicates that because the military planners will always assume a worst-case scenario, they will choose rationally to launch a nuclear retaliation because they perceive a debris destroying their
and there's no potential for Russia to be able to speak to the United States about these things because there have been several incidents in the past back in 1995 and 1973.
That actually only supports the argument that we are at a brink of accidental nuclear war.
A brink of accidental nuclear war, but those were very, very large brinks that eventually almost led to nuclear war, where Russia decided...
is that they did not destroy early warning satellites, which debris would.
5 off. Russia